All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. We love to just get right into it, and today's all about efficiency at work, becoming just an absolute master of getting things done.
Love it.
So we asked you guys to send in some resources, things that you've been using to kind of up your work game. And the one we're looking at today is this book, 30 Days to Becoming a New Person Faster.
Yeah, that's a pretty ambitious title.
Right, like a total transformation in a month. Sign me up.
Well, it definitely lays out a pretty comprehensive plan. I
Mm.
will say that. And it's interesting because it's not just about like working harder or longer. It's really about working smarter, being more intentional with your time and energy.
Yeah, that's what I really liked about it, too. It's like a whole system, kind of a holistic approach.
Exactly.
So where do they even start with all of this? Like if you're going to revamp your entire work life in 30 days, what's step one?
Well, the foundation, they say, is goal setting. And specifically, they emphasize SMART goals, which you've probably heard of. But just to refresh, that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
All right, got it. SMART goals. But I feel like we hear that all the time. Like, why are they so crucial for work efficiency specifically?
Well, think about it like this. If you're going on a road trip, you don't just hop in the car and start driving, right? You need a destination.
Yeah, of course.
So SMART goals are basically like your GPS for your work. They give you that clarity and direction and motivation. You're not just kind of wandering around aimlessly. You know exactly where you're headed and how to get there.
I love that analogy, the GPS for your work. That's perfect. And I think it really highlights why those specific elements of a SMART goal matter so much.
Mm-hmm.
You need that destination, but you also need the route and the timeline to make it happen.
Exactly. It takes all of those pieces to really create a roadmap for success.
Okay, so let's say we've got our SMART goals in place. What's the next step in this 30-day transformation?
Well, once you know where you're going, the book really emphasizes daily planning as a way to kind of declutter your mind and stay on track. Oh, see, I used to be so resistant to planning. I was like, I can keep it all in my head, it's fine. And then I would inevitably forget things or feel super overwhelmed.
It's so easy to let things fall through the cracks when you're trying to juggle everything mentally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But once I started using just a simple to-do list, and honestly, it was life-changing. Like, no more stressing about forgetting things or feeling like I was drowning in tasks.
And it's not just about remembering tasks, right? There's actually a really powerful psychological effect at play here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, studies show that planning can actually reduce stress. It helps you focus better, and it gives you this sense of control over your day.
Mhm.
Instead of reacting to chaos, you're proactively shaping your workflow.
That makes so much sense. It's like you're taking charge instead of letting the day run.
Exactly.
I love that. All right, so we've got our goals, we've got our daily plan all set, but then comes the hard part, actually prioritizing all those tasks. What to tackle first.
Yeah. Prioritization can definitely feel overwhelming sometimes, especially when you have a million things on your plate. Right. And that's where this book introduces a tool that, honestly, I was a little intimidated by at first, but it's called the Eisenhower Matrix. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, the Eisenhower Matrix, it's a classic, and it's actually way simpler than it sounds.
Okay, good. Because I was picturing like some complicated spreadsheet situation.
Yeah. It's basically just a 4-quadrant grid, and you categorize your tasks based on urgency and importance. So, urgent and important. Those go in the top left, and those are the things you need to tackle right away.
Got it. The do it now tasks.
Exactly. Then you have things that are important but not urgent, so those go in the top right, and those are the things you want to schedule, make time for them in your day.
Right, because they matter, but they're not fire drills.
Precisely. And then you have things that are urgent but not important, and those go in the bottom left.
Okay, so those are like distractions almost, right? Things that feel pressing but aren't actually moving the needle on your goals.
Yeah, and ideally you want to delegate those if possible.
I'll pass it off.
And then finally, you have the things that are neither urgent nor important, and those go in the bottom right. And honestly, those are the ones you should consider eliminating altogether.
Yeah, I love that. Get rid of the time wasters. It's so freeing.
It can really streamline your workflow.
Okay, so the Eisenhower Matrix, I'm feeling a little less intimidated now. It's actually a pretty straightforward way to declutter your to-do list and figure out what truly deserves your attention.
Yeah, it's all about getting clear on your priorities.
All right, so now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of actually doing the work.
Yeah.
We've got our goals, our plan, our priorities all set, but I am a master procrastinator. So even with all of that, sometimes I just struggle to sit down and focus.
Procrastination, it's the enemy of efficiency.
Isn't it, though? And this book had a technique for dealing with it that I am loving. It's called the Pomodoro Technique. You ever tried this?
The Pomodoro Technique, yeah, it's a great one. It's basically working in focused intervals. So you work for 25 minutes, then you take a 5-minute break, and you repeat that cycle.
Yes, and it's amazing how much you can get done in those 25 minutes when you have a break coming up.
It's like it creates this little sense of urgency. You're on the clock.
Right, it's like gamifying your work almost.
Exactly. And then those little breaks are so important for just kind of resetting your mind, getting up, stretching, grabbing some water.
Yeah, I feel like those breaks are what make it sustainable. If you try to just power through for hours, you burn out.
Absolutely. And you mentioned you're a master procrastinator. Have you tried maybe shortening those intervals a little bit at first? Maybe doing like 15 minutes on, 10 minutes off?
That's a great idea.
Hmm.
I do sometimes get overwhelmed by that full 25 minutes.
Yeah, it's all about finding what works for you.
All right, so the Pomodoro Technique, I'm sold. But let's be real, even with the best time management techniques, distractions are everywhere.
Distractions, they are the ultimate productivity killers.
And this book really hones in on two of the biggest culprits. In our phones, I mean, how many times do you pick up your phone for like one quick thing and then 30 minutes later, you're like, what was I even doing?
Oh, yeah, it happens to the best of us.
And I think we underestimate how much those little distractions actually affect our focus.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, imagine you're trying to solve a complex math equation and someone's constantly like tapping you on the shoulder, talking to you. You're just not going to be able to think clearly.
No way your brain would be fried.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with those little digital distractions. They might seem harmless, but they're constantly pulling us out of that flow state.
So what can we do about it? I mean, distractions are kind of unavoidable, right?
Well, I think the first step is just becoming aware of our biggest distractions.
Yeah.
What are those things that really derail our focus? And then we can start to implement some strategies to minimize them.
I love that. So what about you? What's your biggest distraction at work?
For me, it's definitely email. I tend to get sucked into that inbox vortex.
Oh, yeah. I feel you on that one. It's like a black hole.
So one thing I've started doing is just silencing my email notifications for a few hours each day so I can really focus on deep work.
That's a great idea. I need to try that.
It makes a big difference.
All right, so we've talked about goals planning, prioritizing time management, distractions. But I think the next big hurdle for a lot of us is just feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of tasks.
Yeah.
Like, how do you manage it all?
Yeah, it's easy to feel like you're drowning in to-dos.
And this book has some really practical advice for dealing with that overwhelm. Specifically, they talk about delegation and breaking down large tasks.
2 essential skills for effective task management.
But I think a lot of people struggle with those things. Delegating can feel scary and breaking down big projects can be daunting. So any tips on how to actually do those things well?
Well, with delegation, I think the key is being crystal clear. Clearly define the task, the deadline, and the desired outcome. Don't leave any room for ambiguity.
Communication is key.
Exactly. And then with breaking down large tasks, think of it like planning a trip. Instead of just saying, I'm going to travel to Europe, you break it down into smaller steps, book flights, arrange accommodation plan itinerary, and suddenly it feels much more manageable.
I love that analogy. It's so true. When you break it down, it doesn't seem so overwhelming anymore.
Right. It's all about making those big tasks feel less intimidating.
Okay, so we're starting to build a pretty solid foundation for work efficiency here. But this book takes it a step further and talks about the compound effect of good work habits, which I found so fascinating.
Yeah, the compound effect. It's this powerful idea that small, consistent actions can lead to significant long-term results.
And it applies to so many areas of life,
Yeah.
but especially to work. It's not about making these huge, drastic changes overnight. It's about incorporating these little habits that over time make a huge difference.
Like the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right. It's about those small breaks that eventually create a masterpiece.
Exactly. And even something as simple as dedicating just 15 minutes each day to decluttering your workspace. That can have a huge impact on your overall productivity and peace of mind in the long run.
Wow, I love that. 15 minutes a day, that feels doable.
It's all about starting small and building momentum.
All right, so speaking of small habits,
Yeah.
is there one you're trying to implement this week, something that you think could really boost your efficiency?
Well, actually, inspired by that 15-minute decluttering idea, I'm going to try to end each workday by just tidying up my desk for 15 minutes, just getting things organized for the next day so I can start fresh.
I love that a clear workspace equals a clear mind.
Exactly.
All right, so we've covered a ton of ground here, but there's one final piece of advice in this book that I was honestly surprised by. It's the importance of rest.
Rest. Yeah, it might seem counterintuitive when we're talking about efficiency, but it's absolutely essential.
I know, it's like you would think to be super productive, you need to be go, go, go all the time, but actually,
That's quite the opposite, actually.
Yeah, the book really emphasizes that rest is not a luxury.
Mm.
It's actually crucial for peak performance.
It's like recharging your batteries. If you keep running your phone without ever plugging it in, eventually it just dies.
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy, and it makes sense. When you're well rested, you're more
Hmm.
focused, you're more creative, you make better decisions.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything extravagant, just getting enough sleep, taking some breaks during the day, maybe going for a walk, whatever helps you disconnect and recharge.
Absolutely. And it's something we need to be intentional about, scheduling those breaks into our day, just like we schedule any other important task.
It's an investment in your productivity.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into becoming efficiency ninjas,
Mm.
I'm curious, what's one actionable step you're going to take today to kind of put all of this into practice?
Hmm. That's a great question. I think I'm going to revisit my goals, actually. I have some that are a little bit outdated, so I'm going to spend some time really refining them, making sure they're smart and align with my current priorities.
I love that. That's a perfect place to start getting that clear vision of where you're headed.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me on this journey to efficiency. It's been a lot of fun.
It has. And remember, everyone, efficiency isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters most with clarity, focus, and intention.
Beautifully said. All right, everyone, until next time, stay curious and keep striving for that perfect workflow.